Welcome. My name is Mina Rickey,
And this is Lydia Korshik.
and today we are interviewing Clint Coons,
He is the founding partner and attorney.
and he is one of the founding partners of Anderson Business Advisors. Clint has grown his legal and tax firm to over 500 employees by assisting real estate investors with creating and implementing solid entity structuring plans.
His success in this regarding is in large part due to his personal investing experience. Taking what he learned growing up in real estate family, Clint has acquired over 300 properties from small single-family homes to commercial buildings.
A prolific writer and educator, Clint has published hundreds of articles, videos, and workbooks on the subject of real estate investing and asset protection, including his most recent book, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors.
Using real life examples and his personal experiences, Clint knows what really works in investing and what's to avoid.
A successful attorney, real estate investor, and speaker, Clint has used his innovative and dynamic strategies, coupled with knowledge born from experience, to help thousands of people save millions of dollars and build real wealth. Clint, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, we've been at one of your, seminars, 3 days, talk about taxes. It was phenomenal. And you are huge in asset protection world. So tell us to our listeners who you are and what you do and what's your superpower.
Yeah, so I'm a real estate investor that happens to also be an attorney, and I help other investors protect their assets. So I created a firm with my partner Toby Mathis back in '99 with the stated goal of showing people how to set up structures, land trusts, limited liability companies, corporations, but not just set them up, how to use them effectively when it comes to investing to ensure that your assets are protected, that you're capitalizing on all of the tax benefits that come from being a real estate investor or a small business owner, but also setting up your entities in a way in which will help drive more business to you, create more opportunities. And that's where Anderson is unique, the firm that I created with my partner Toby Mathis. And what I personally specialize in is helping investors all over the country learn about these various strategies so they can implement them. So if you want to own real estate anonymously, you can do it. If you want to run your business anonymously, that's possible. If you want to make sure you can reduce your risk of audit, it's really simple to do that if you just understand how to set up the entity the right way and select that proper form of entity. So that's what our firm does. We also are a bit unique in the fact we bring together CPAs that work in-house with our attorneys in assisting our clients in putting together their plans and achieving their financial dreams.
But Clint, somebody might say, I
Yeah.
already have an LLC. I don't do it under my name. It's my husband and me, 50-50, and we put all our properties in that LLC. What's wrong with that?
Well, the problem with it is that you think you're protected, and that's what a lot of people assume. In fact, I used to make the same mistake when I started teaching and started working with people after I graduated from law school. I would tell them, "Hey, put 4 or 5 properties in one LLC, and you're going to be protected." Because my mindset was, if something goes wrong with the properties, they can't sue me. Well, that's great. And then if something does go wrong with one of those properties, well, they can sue the limited liability company. So I would focus on equity and I'd look at the property and I would say, all right, well, this property has $50,000 equity. That one has 100. So let's try to keep the equity at about $400,000 inside of that LLC, no more than 5 properties. But as I started building my own investing career and I started acquiring a lot of real estate, I started realizing that, hey, for my investing, I'm not buying for equity. I buy for cash flow. I'm buying for long-term wealth accumulation. And the idea that I'm going to put more than one property in an LLC is counterintuitive to building that long-term wealth, that cash flow, because if something did go wrong, you lose, the equity, but you lose all the cash flow from those properties. And when you're first starting out, that's important. If you only have 4 properties and it throws off $20,000 a year and somebody wipes all that out with one lawsuit, that's a huge impact. Now, as you grow and you take on more properties, you can absorb more risk. So people often ask me, well, do you have 300 limited liability companies? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm comfortable putting 10 properties per LLC, but the thing is, I could lose 10 properties and it's not going to change my lifestyle. Whereas somebody, if all they have is 10 properties and one lawsuit wipes them out, that's a huge impact.
Hmm. And I don't want to give it up, but you guys also have, because the other thing that an investor is thinking, I already have so much in my plate. I mean, so much to do to even think about dealing with 10 LLCs through the years. So I also know that you guys offer those services as well, right? And I think people need to know this.
So I heard that exact same objection when I structured my parents. So
Mm.
my dad came to me and he said, "Hey, I want you to get us protected. I sent you to law school and now you're on permanent retainer for life. So create a bunch of structures." Because my dad's I grew up in a real estate family. I used to work on all his rental properties for free when I was a kid because I was an indentured servant. And he said to me, he goes, "I want everything protected here because eventually one of these days you and your brother are going to inherit this. So you better do it
Mhm.
right." I went, my dad, he works on the properties. My mom maintains the properties. So I went to my mom and I said, "All right, mom, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create one limited liability per LLC per property." She said, "The hell we are." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I do not want all that stress. This is going to be too confusing, too complicated." And she started bringing up all the objections to why having 10 LLCs or 20 LLCs wasn't going to work. And then I sat down with her and I explained to her, I said, what's the difference between having one LLC versus 10 LLCs from the way you run things? Nothing. You're still going to keep track of the properties and the expenses. You're still going to collect the checks. She said, "Well, what about tax returns?" I said, "The LLCs don't have to file tax returns. We can set it up so they're completely disregarded. What's going to change in your life is that now title is held in a limited liability company. That's it. Nothing else. The tenants are still going to write their checks to you. Everything's going to run as per normal, and you're still going to do all the same accounting." And once she grasped that, she was more accepting of it. And so at Anderson, we set up our structures that way as I was talking about. But then we also appreciate the fact that, on the accounting side, we do help those clients that choose to engage with us to make sure that they're setting their books up the right way. Because a lot of real estate investors, where I find they can run into problems, is that they don't have a good accounting system supporting their rental properties. And that comes into play when you're going out there and you're trying to grow and you're trying to obtain financing to buy more properties, and you're asked for P&Ls and balance sheets and they want to look at your tax returns. And in minor errors, you may not think they're that important. They truly are when it comes to obtaining financing, because the underwriters, they're going to spot those errors. And if they see mistakes there, they're going to wonder, all right, what other mistakes are we not finding in what they're doing? And they're going to then question about your ability to repay.
That's right. So everybody knows about the entity of LLC, but there are so
Mhm.
many other entities. Can you shed some light what entities? I know we discussed it during our boot camp that we were there. So tell us more.
Yeah, well, so that's one of the common misconceptions. People think that real estate investing, asset protection, structuring, it's a one size fits all approach. And that's because the LLC is the king, and everybody, well, when you're talking to them, will tell you, "Oh, just set up a limited liability company because we're all doing it." Well, we use a lot of LLCs for our clients. I use a ton of LLCs in my own planning, but there are other tools that are in our kit that we will use depending upon where the property is located, because it's just not about asset protection. You have to make sure that when you're deeding property into a limited liability company, that it's not going to result in a reassessment of the property or trigger a transfer tax of some sort. So in situations like that, maybe you want to look at using a land trust,
Mhm.
which is a title holding vehicle that is oftentimes exempt from transfer taxes or reassessments that may impact your decision whether or not to move forward with asset protection. So we like that tool. If you invest subject to, right now, interest rates are up, and people that had low interest rate loans are looking at moving their properties out of their name and putting them into LLCs. And so what we've seen in the last year or 6 months to a year, banks are getting highly critical of transfers, and they're sending out letters to clients saying, "Oh, we noticed that the insured has now changed on this property. You violated the due on sale clause. Do X, Y, or Z, or we're going to accelerate or look at all of our other actions, our legal actions that we have available to us under that agreement." So a land trust is a great tool to prevent a lender from trying to go down that road and create problems for you, which stops time, many times, the investors from setting up a great asset protection structure because fear of the lender. So I like land trust, series limited liability companies. That's a great tool if you own property in a state that recognizes a series LLC. And so I tell people, hey, when it comes to real estate investing and looking at entities, just don't look at where you live. I live in Washington State, and I use LLCs here. But for my Texas property, my investments in Texas, I'll use a series limited liability company down there because it's like a traditional LLC, but it actually is really flexible and accommodating when you need additional entities. You don't have to keep filing new LLCs with the Secretary of State. So there's things like that we could use, or statutory trust, business trust. If you buy real estate in California, you want to avoid franchise fees. And so it's really getting your hands around these structures and understanding that it's entity structuring is state specific, county specific in some cases, and it's also about where you live. I mean, there's so many things that we need to look at when we're going into the plan.
And that begs a question. Do you guys work all over the country in all 50 states?
Absolutely. We work all over the country. And when we're creating the plan for someone, it's not just focused solely on asset protection. We're also looking at preserving all the tax benefits that come from real estate investing. You'll see investors occasionally make mistakes. There's a lot of people out there, they'll set up the company and they'll make the wrong tax classification for their entity. And then they'll run into issues such as they want to pull the property out to do a refi, and they find out that that is a taxable event. Just to refi their property, it's going to create a taxable event as if they sold the property. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on the tax side of entity creation. And then when you're creating the entities, there's little tricks you can use to set up entities so you look better to lenders, so you can qualify for more financing and reduce your risk of audit.
Do you guys also do this in Canada and other countries?
We don't do it in Canada and other countries, but we work with Canadians
Okay.
and people from other countries that invest in the United States. And it's because the laws here are pretty uniform. When you go into Canada, it's provincial or federal, and they're all different up there. So it makes it problematic for us to set up structures there in that country.
It blows my mind how involved you guys are with your customers and all these services that you are helping them
Mhm.
to go through. And it's important stuff. It's taxes, is dealing with the government, dealing with IRS and all of that. Who is in your team, Clint? How do you guys manage your team?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And the way we're able to do it is that we hire right. We find people that have a passion for this area of the law, and we bring in those attorneys, we bring in those tax professionals, and many of those same individuals that work inside of the company in those specific roles, they're also investors themselves, or they have a background in business. So we bring not only the legal aspect, but also the real world advice that a lot of people, if they're not doing it, they don't understand. And I often joke around that, hey, if you're going to choose an attorney to help you in real estate investing, make sure that that attorney's an investor themselves, and question them on the strategies that you are looking for assistance with. For example, if I wanted a house hack, if I went to an attorney and said, hey, can you help me hack a house and set up a structure for that? They might think that you want to break into that home via the network, not understanding that house hacking is just renting out a room, and they're going to tell you it's an illegal activity. You're like, what? I can't rent a room out in my house? Oh, that's all you wanted to do. So those are typically good sign that the person you're seeking assistance from truly doesn't understand what you're doing. And so a lot of times I tell people, interview the person that you're going to be working with. And at Anderson, if you were to interview us, you're going to find that you're going to get answers to questions that a lot of people just aren't able to provide because they're not doing it. They're not working with clients all over the country, as you brought up earlier, that are doing what our clients are doing, which is investing in growing businesses.
Mina, I had an interesting experience the other day. I was showing properties to a family with 2 kids, and we had 10 to see. After viewing about half, the family was getting pretty hungry, and they really just wanted to continue the other day.
So what did you do?
I went to my car and pulled out a bag of delicious Rickey Jerky. They loved it so much that we're able to continue our day without any issues. All the ingredients are 100% natural, plus every strip is seasoned, marinated, and smoked by hand to give you the best experience and slap you back into the gear. But I need to buy some more.
Oh, just head over to rickysjerky.com and use the discount code, the code REI, for 15% off your first order.
So whether you're a busy real estate agent or just looking for mouth-watering snack on the go, Rickey Jerky got you covered.
And that is on the tax protection.
Mm-hmm.
A whole different conversation goes into asset protection. Oh boy. I mean, we're talking about second generation, third generation. We're talking about the difference between the Rockefellers and what was the other ones?
Oh, yeah, Rothschilds, all those guys from Getty and all them from back in the day. Yeah, Toby likes talking about them, my partner.
Yes,
he does.
because the difference was that asset protection, as if you just give your family everything you work for, and,
Mhm.
and the kids don't know how to protect it or use it or utilize it to get a better living or grow it or at least just maintain it. That is just such a shame. We see it all the time.
Yeah, that's the thing that I tell people is that, what you're growing today, right? It has the potential to create income for multiple generations. You're laying the foundation. And if you don't have a good estate plan in place and you haven't thought about that, it's time to start putting that at the forefront of what you're doing because so many people will pass on their estate to their loved ones. And within one generation, possibly two, all the work that took place today is gone and wiped out because of divorces, lawsuits, just not looking at things from an investment mindset. You sell the house to buy a Mercedes, buy a depreciating asset when you had a cash flowing ATM asset because you think, oh, wow, it feels good to be driving around an S class. Well, it's not worth anything in 10 years. And that house is still throwing off $7,000 a year for an infinite number of years. And so by putting together a plan, what you can ensure is that those types of things will not impact the wealth that you build today. So it'll be there for those that come tomorrow and the days after that. And so I think that's the critical piece that many times people put on the back burner. And it really should be what you lead with because that is the foundation.
So, talking about foundation, when should
Mhm.
someone hire you guys? At what point of their life?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. And I tell people that if you have assets currently, if you're looking to get started in business, then it would be a good time to have a conversation because a lot of people don't realize that the entities you set up today can actually help you get more done. So I think that before you even, I mean, the biggest, here's what a lot of people say. Well, wait, go out there and do something first and then set up a structure. Basically saying this, go out there and hope you don't screw anything up and get sued because you're more apt to make a mistake when you don't know what you don't know than you are when you've been doing something for as long as I have for 30 years, been investing in real estate and running businesses. So where do you need more protection? You need it at the front end.
Mhm.
And so that advice, I think, is bad advice that people receive. And so I tell people, hey, if you want to start a business, you think about starting investing, we should have a conversation now and get something set up so you're covering yourself. Because let's say you entered a bad contract. There was a client, not a client, an individual came to me one time. She wanted to wholesale real estate, tied up 5 pieces of property, couldn't flip the deals to any investors. She got a few extensions on the closing. Finally, she tried to walk away, thought the only thing at risk was her earnest money. Found out later on she got served with a lawsuit and they sued her
Oh,
and she
wow.
never got her real estate career off the ground because that one lawsuit wiped her out. Those are the types of stories that I hate hearing about because it could have easily been solved had she set up an entity to begin with, say an LLC. You know why she didn't do it? Because she was told she didn't need one yet because she hadn't done her first deal and she should wait. Well, that first deal killed her financially.
Wow. So I hear a lot of people ask me these questions all the time. Well, I'm going to set up an LLC C Corp or S Corp. Can you break it down? What's the C Corp and S Corp mean? Because a lot of people are so confused about that.
Yeah, it really comes down to how you want your entity treated for federal tax purposes. So when we use the term C Corp, really what we're saying is that the entity, it's a standalone entity that'll be taxed at its own tax rate, which is a flat 21% on its net income. Whereas an S corporation, it's a flow through entity. So it files a tax return, but it doesn't pay taxes. The individual owners of that company will pay the tax. And so an LLC can choose to be taxed as a C or an S for federal tax purposes. And a traditional corp, of course, could be a C or an S for tax purposes. But the biggest issue surrounding this when it comes to choosing the election has to do with preconceived notions of how corporate taxes work. A lot of people assume it when you say C corporation, first word that comes to mind, double taxation. You should never set that up. You're going to get taxed twice. No one wants to get taxed once, but think about getting taxed twice. That sucks. But the fact of the matter is that in many situations, you will find that if you do a full analysis of the two tax strategies, that a C corporation for a lot of real estate investors makes more sense than an S corporation. And when I sit down with CPAs who traditionally like to challenge when we will structure someone with a C corporation because they'll throw out the word double taxation. They don't ask the client the right questions. What do you want to do? Why are you setting up this company? What are you doing on the outside as far as investing is concerned? Because not only do you look at taxes, we look at, hey, you got to go out and work with lenders. How do we position you so your tax returns will look better to a lender so you can borrow money to get more deals done? And if you're not looking at all sides of an investor's financial situation in their life, then you're going to put them in a position. Yeah, they may get some deals done, but they're not going to move as fast as someone else that's been properly structured.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that's when it comes very handy to have the attorneys and the accountants talking to each other on what is the strategy for the investor. I mean, how many cases have we heard? That is amazing. I just want to say that during the conference, my biggest takeaway was the mindset on the IRS and taxation overall. Yeah, I'm just amazed how we just don't know how to think about them and how to deal with them. It's just a hidden ghost that is behind the scenes that somehow wants to screw everybody's life. And it's not true. It's just an entity that works for the government and the people, and we just have to know their playbook so we can play with them. That's all.
That's right. And so people assume that if you're working with a CPA or a tax preparer, that they're going to understand everything in the Internal Revenue Code. Well, I forget how many tens of thousands of pages there are in the Internal Revenue Code. So that assumption, okay, it just falls flat right away when you really analyze it. But the thing is that many tax practitioners, right, all they do is they fill out 1040s. And once you get out of being strictly a W-2 wager and you're starting to then go out there and buy real estate, start businesses, now you're outside of their comfort zone. And so you can't expect them to provide meaningful advice in an area that they're not accustomed to working in. Like if you came to me and said, hey, what are the best strategies if I was going to go through a divorce? I would say, just say yes to your wife more often and don't go through a divorce. Couldn't help you because I don't know anything about it. It's not my area. So someone could say, Clint gives, pretty crappy divorce advice. Well, I don't know. That's not our area. So the same thing with taxes. When, in our tax department, what we focus on is working with small business owners and real estate investors. So we're going to be up on the things that are meaningful to them, that can bring real change to their 1040s, to the taxes that they pay on an annual basis, but also do it responsibly. What do I mean by do it responsibly? I keep hitting on this term that, hey, entities can help you do more. Well, the same with tax planning, that when you're planning for taxes and taking deductions, everyone's goal is always, hey, I want to eliminate all my taxes. Well, I used to have that goal. In fact, I practiced it for 4 years. I paid zero federal income tax, but I couldn't get a deal done because no underwriters would loan me money because my tax returns showed that I made zero income. And when I told them I made pretty good money, they would said, "Oh, you must be doing something illegal because it's not showing up where we can count it." So those are the things that you need to be sensitive to with the overall planning. And that only comes from experience.
That's right. Only comes from experience. So you guys have this big company and different packages for all the investors.
Mhm.
How can they find this information and contact you?
Well, what I would suggest that they do is they come to one of our tax and asset protection workshops. We teach these workshops every week or every other week, and they're a live online event. And you register for the event. You come there; it's no cost. You're going to listen to myself. You're going to listen to my partner talk about various entities, how they work, how to set them up so that people don't even know what you have. So you can use anonymity, how land trusts work for your investing in LLCs and corporations. And then we talk about the tax planning that goes along with that. And what's really great about this event is that it's interactive from the standpoint when you hear me talking about a land trust, you're wondering, does that work for me? I own real estate in Tennessee. Should I consider using a land trust? I've got a team of attorneys and CPAs that are there with me and they're answering questions. They're banging out 1,200, 1,400 questions an event. And so if you want to register for this free event, tax and asset protection workshop, all you have to do is go to aba.link/decode, DECOD. Just go to that link and you can register for it. And then you can join us and then go a little bit deeper into planning for your business and your investing.
I didn't realize you had it every week. I've been waiting for the next live event. Is
Oh,
that
well, the
coming up?
next live event's going to be in Vegas. That's going to be in
Oh,
September.
oh,
Yeah,
Oh, we're gonna be in
last
Vegas in
week.
September. We
There
might
you go. We'll be the
stay a
last
little.
weekend.
Oh,
last
okay,
weekend.
we might stay a little longer then. I need
Yeah.
to watch you guys like 3, 5 times. I don't know. And I need everybody to watch you. Honestly, it's been so enlightening, and you guys are a great team and great personalities, and you're doing a good job. Yeah,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely. Thank you, Clint. I like the idea that you're an investor because you have the investor mindset and you've been doing this a while. And your dad put you in lifetime retainer. I
I
tell you
like
Yeah.
what.
that. Hey, Clint, before we go, can you tell us
Uh-huh.
about you have a book or several books, and where else can people find information about what you are an expert on?
Yeah, I wrote a couple of books. One's called Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors, and the second book is Next Level Asset Protection Strategies. You can find them on Amazon. And I'll tell you, when you read my first book, you're going to see some strategies in there, like we were just talking about grouping properties per LLC. That when I wrote my second book, I said, gosh, I didn't know what the hell I was saying back then. Uh, because as my investing started to grow and my portfolio took off, I started realizing some of the things I used to be teaching doesn't necessarily help me on the growth side. So there's a lot of good information in both of those books. Or if you just, you're a connoisseur and you want to absorb as much information as you can, I got a great YouTube channel, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors. Just type in my name in YouTube and it'll pop right away. So if you want to educate yourself, those are great ways to do it. But I would highly encourage you, if you're watching this right now, to check out our tax and asset protection event. It's no charge to come to it. And that's where you can get a lot of questions answered.
That's
That's
right.
great. Well, thank you, Clint, for coming and sharing.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.